guys, welcome back to the second half of the build. So today, we'll put some new sealing rings on the front pump, new front pump seal. Then we'll pull the two drums apart, pull the pistons out, put new seals and everything on those. Show you a little trick that I use. I suck at putting them in because I've torn a couple. This is a trick that I found out about that I do. Sorry about the glare from the light. So I'll show you that little trick. And then, the frictions and steels, slapping them in. And, that'll kind of put the drums back together. And then we can slide, this all back together. So anyway, let's jump right into it. All right, guys. So I'm going to take basically, chisel, knock this thing loose and knock off the old pump seal and this drive a new pump seal on. Not a big deal, right? Now, the sealing rings are a little different on these. And there's two sealing rings here, and you can see a spacer as well. I need to measure this. I think ATSG manual says it's supposed to be about 61 thousandths. If it's less than that, you need to replace it. So I'm going to double check that thickness real quick. And then here are the sealing rings. And if you notice, the sealing rings have little hooks on them. Where the other ones you just kind of put on, these you take off, and then you need to kind of push them and then latch them together. So these are the difference on the sealing rings. The one thing I would recommend is take the bottom one off first, slide it over the top one, then take that one off, and then when you go to put them back on, put the first one on, and then you can slide it over, the second one off, slides over the first one, and then, you can get it into the second one. So anyway, let's measure this thickness, and I'll double check what that value was. I think it was 61 thousandths. We get my calipers out, measure them, take those out, and then put a new pump seal on. Now, I just replaced my bushings, just about 10,000 miles ago, so I'm not going to replace them again. But if you need to, what I'll do is simple socket and extension and a brass hammer. Find a socket that just fits over, the brass bushing, and then drive it out. Obviously, make sure you check the orientation and everything. If there's any lube holes or anything, make sure you get your lube holes lined up, all that kind of stuff. And then, drive the old one out, drive the new one in. So just take your time when doing it, and you can do it without damaging them. So it's a patience thing when doing some of these bushings, especially in these areas. If you don't have like the bushing pullers and installers and whatnot, which I don't, that's what I will do to drive them in and out. Again, taking your time to make sure you do it correctly. All right, guys, you'll notice, got my pump apart, got the gears over here. I got to looking real close at the flashlight, and if you notice, this bushing here on this front pump got damaged. This is where the torque converter goes. And, when it went into violent vibration mode, it did a little damage to the bushing here. So, you kind of look down in there, right? Now the other one, just got a couple minor scratches down in there. Nothing I'm going to worry about. I mean, the bushing itself does not show, really the wear. I could pop one of these in, but honestly, the copper is still all there, that copper color. Just a couple of little fine scratches, so that's not going to hurt anything. So I may pop one in, I may not. We'll see here in a minute what kind of mood I'm in. The other thing I just wanted to point out, right, look at the stakes in here, all right, to make sure that this does not spin. Okay, so when you put your new one in, drive out your old one and put your new one in, you need to make sure you stake it, all right? Basically, you just kind of take a punch, and just kind of give it a little whack on either side, and that's about it. So like a round punch, just take a little round punch and on the edge, just give it a pump, a little pop. So let me get a socket here so we can drive this out from the front side here. We'll drive it out. We'll drive the new one in. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to line up, so it's just a matter of popping it in and away we go. So we'll put this new one in. Good thing I did order this bushing set just in case. And we'll go from there. So hang tight. All right, guys, so I used a 30 millimeter socket to drive this out. It's the one that I could get in there to fit the best. So she popped out with little effort, and there's my brass hammer. So to put the new one in, I've just got it setting in there right now. And I'm using my steel driver, right, the flat side. And we'll drive her down in there as far as we can. And then if I need to use the socket just to seat it just a hair more, I will. But then let's go ahead and knock that in. And then you can see, right, my round punch here is where I'll use it to stake it. Here we go, guys. We have it put in. I recommend when you're driving your seals and to do it on a solid surface, not a 1/4-inch piece of plywood when you do it. A concrete floor, a metal workbench, whatever you have. Now we can go ahead and slip our gears back in here. Or we'll attempt to put our gears back in here. And the gears are in great shape. Didn't see any damage with them whatsoever. So anyway, let me get these dropped in, then we'll bolt the two pump halves back together, and then we'll come over to these guys. And guys, this is why the ATSG manual is really nice to have. It talks about, if you have the special tools, how to remove bushings, install bushings. You can see here staking the bushing. Here's like the torque specs, for the front pump, like I did 175 inch-pounds based on the torque wrench that I have. So that's why this ATSG manual is really nice to have and important to help walk you through, servicing your transmission. All right, guys, we got the front pump all back together, torqued up to the 175 inch-pounds, new seal on, plenty of Vaseline in there, new sealing rings in place, all lubed up. New gasket, here I need to lube that up yet with some Vaseline for that, but she's pretty much ready to go. So we'll set this aside. And now let me get something set up so I can take these apart and kind of show you as I do this so I can use two hands. All right, guys, where I'm going to start is with this. There's two sealing rings, 1, 2. You can see it moving there. So if you notice, these are the interlocking style again. So let me go ahead and pop these off and put two new ones in. We'll also measure this gasket as well. This one I believe is still the 61, just like the other one was. So we will pick it out, take a quick measurement, and then we will pop this apart. Guys, a pick works really good for getting these out. So if you have a cheap Harbor Freight pick set, that's all you pretty much need to get these things out. All right, guys, so we've got the new sealing rings installed. All right, I just need to lube them up. Now, this did measure 61 thousandths as well. So this is another one of those shims we need to use. We'll set it off to the side. Grab a flat blade screwdriver here, guys, and we'll just pop this off. All right, set that aside for a second. Pull everything out. So you'll see here's our big thick pressure plate. Now we get into friction steel, friction steel, friction steel, and all that. Here's the bottom pressure plate. Notice that it's beveled, okay? Set that all over there for a second. Now we'll pop out this bottom snap ring. Hung up. There we go. Now there's a little spacer in here as well. Get that out of here. Sits on top of that bevel washer here. So you can see this is that little spacer I'm talking about. So it goes on top of the washer and in between the snap ring. And then we can just lift out our piston. Boom. Now this is what we need to clean up. I just wanted to make sure there's no debris in here, anything like that. Honestly, I could have just left these seals in here and not replaced them, because they only had, you know, 10, 12,000 miles on them. But since I'm in it, we might as well make sure there's no debris or anything, you know, no damage to the seals, that kind of stuff. So it's cheap insurance. So let me clean this all up real good. We'll come back, I'll install new seals, and then I'll show you the little trick that I do. All right, guys, so I've cleaned off my piston, you know, from all the transmission fluid and everything real good. I've replaced both seals. You know, the inner one's a little trickier to get in, but, you know, I was able to get it in there because there is like a straight cut. It's not like a square cut seal that goes in here. You know, you just got to take your little pick and just kind of give it a little nudge here and there, and you can get it to go in because there's like a flat groove that goes in, and then, you know, the lip seal kind of sticks out. And then I put a new outer lip seal, you know, and it's all nice and clean. So my trick is some electrical tape. You're going electrical tape, yep. And after I put electrical tape around it, I stick it in the freezer for a while because it makes it a whole lot easier because you're trying to take this lip here, right, and gently take a thin credit card, something, right, and kind of work this piston around and push it in. So my trick is wrap it real tight with electrical tape. A couple wraps with electrical tape. So I force the seal down, right? After a couple turns, throw it in the freezer. And then when I take it out of the freezer after maybe an hour, what I'll do is Vaseline it up real fast and it will drop right in the bore. Well, maybe not drop in, but it'll drop in real easy. Let's put it that way. So we'll do a couple little wraps around here. Got a freezer in the garage. We'll stick this in the freezer for a little while and we'll come back, Vaseline it, and then basically it'll just drop right in the bore nice and easy. And then we can put in our new frictions and steels and check our clutch pipe clearance. So let me go ahead and stick this in the freezer. And we'll go over to this drum, take it apart, show you how to take it apart, and then we'll do the same thing with that piston. And then we'll come back in a little bit, and we'll reassemble these, check our clutch pack clearances, take them back apart, soak the frictions for a little bit in some transmission fluid or hydraulic fluid, and then we can put these, build these back up and drop them in the transmission. All right, guys, now let's take this one apart. Again, we've got a snap ring on the outside. Everything else will just kind of fall out, or it should. One of the frictions is still in there. Well. All right. Friction and the steel. All right, now to get this piston out, we need to press this down. Now on the old style, it's one big spring inside of here, one big wound spring. In this one, I've got, I think it's 24 or 32 little springs. This is you know, an all billet piece with little springs, kind of a performance part. So let me get my fancy homemade spring compressor. That's right, this is what I use, guys. All it is a piece of 1/8 inch, 3/16 plate maybe, that I cut, welded some bolts to it, and made my own compressor on a, you know, real fast and down and dirty. So that way I can press that piston down and remove the snap ring and then take that apart so I can get the piston out. So let me go ahead and take this in, or take it apart, I guess. So guys, you don't need to go buy fancy stuff. You can just make your own, you know, piston spring compressor out of scrap, bolts, whatever you got lying around. Key is, you know, I got to keep this centered up so when I press this down, I can get to the snap ring and get it out. All right, so let me figure out where the snap ring. All right, guys, so I finally got the snap ring out. It's a spiral snap ring, and I'll show you what I mean by a spiral snap ring. But now we can loosen this up and take this apart. Without losing any of those little springs I was just talking about. Let me spin this all the way off. So here is that spiral snap ring I was talking about. See how it like overlaps itself here. Oops. Get my fingernail, see what I mean about how it spirals. Now, here is that little billet piece I was talking about. So I mean, how it has all the little springs in here versus, you know, one big snap ring that goes around, and I can show you what I mean by that. But now we can pop our piston out, and just like the other one, what I'm going to do is I need to take this big lip seal off, and we'll clean this real good. We'll wrap it with tape so we can pop it in there. But then there's a lip seal inside of here, you know, that I'll need to take out as well and replace it. So let me go ahead and clean these up. We'll wrap this with tape as well. Get it in the freezer for a little while. We'll replace this seal, and then I'll show you that big snap ring, you know, the other style spiral ring versus this. Here, guys, is what I'm talking about. That big yellow wound spring in here. I don't know if you can see it. Basically, there's a big yellow spring in here. You know, one big wound spring versus, like I said, all those little springs, right? And more of a conventional style snap ring versus the, you know, the circular snap ring. So, just wanted to show you what the difference in stock drum versus, right, buying aftermarket pieces. So if you're doing a stock rebuild, you're fine with this. If you're going after performance, upgrade to that billet piece. You can get that from like A&A Transmission, John Cope Racing Transmissions. There's probably a few other sites that sell it too, but those are a couple of guys that have it. All right, guys, piston's been in there for a while, at least this one. Let's go ahead and untape it. Let's get the Vaseline on it real quick. You can see what it does is it sucks that seal real close to here. Doesn't allow it to like flare out. Now you do the inside and the outside both. So we'll do the inside one. All right, now we'll do the outside lip. Get her nice and lubed up. Okay. So now we've got it set up here. We can just take it, carefully work this down. Come on. There she goes. That easy, guys. Let's just look how easy that was to do. Piston's now in there. When this thaws out, it'll expand, you know, and there we go. We did not flip a seal. We were able to basically just pop this seal piston right in there with new seals. So we'll give it a few minutes, let her kind of do its thing. Now, what we can do though, is we can go ahead and set the bevel in. We can go ahead and set in the spacer. And then we can go ahead and set in this snap ring. There we go. Now, what we can do is we can set in this base plate. Boom. Now let me get my new frictions. And what we'll do is I'm going to reuse my old steels. There's absolutely nothing wrong with them. And then we will check the clearance. So there's a difference clearance for racing versus a stock application. I will tell you here in a second what Jock Cope recommends based on his instructions that he provided. So hang tight, let me get my steels, and we'll put the rest of this together, and then we'll check our gap. All right, guys, so I went ahead and put this one together dry. So the frictions and steels are all alternated, right? Friction, steel, friction, steel, friction, steel, top plate, and then the the snap ring. So for this front drum, front clutch, this one, set it for 70 thousandths, and the rear for 30 to 35. So let me get my feeler gauges, and we'll throw a bunch together here. So 25, 45, 45, 65, 40, 65. So about 65 here. Let's see how 65 kind of looks. We can get 45. Yep, there we go. She's tight at 65. He's calling for basically 70 thousandths. I can probably get 70 thousandths in here if I really wanted to. So I'd say that's a win. For a street car, it says 85 thousandths for a street car for the front, and 30 thousandths for the rear. So, so we'll be running, like I said, we'll be running, this is pretty much 70 thousandths right here. Just a hair tight, but that's okay. We got plenty of space in there. So what I'm going to do is take this apart and then soak the frictions in transmission fluid for about 30 minutes and then put it all back together. But for right now though, let's set this aside. And let me go get the piston for this one. We'll lube it up, stick everything back together again. We'll measure this one to see if we have that 30 to 35 thousandths that we're looking for. And by the way, when you do the feeler gauge, you want to do it between the snap ring and the top plate here. All right, so it goes between the snap ring and the top plate, not between the clutches. You know, because it's a stack up that you're looking for, you know, of all of them. So let me get one of these out. Come on. So again, you want to go between, right up top here, between the snap ring and the top plate. All right, let me go get the piston and we'll do this one. All right, guys, so we've got the piston again. Unwrap the electrical tape. She's nice and tight to the piston here. She's nice and cold. Let's lube up the seal real good. All right. Now we're going to also lube up the seal inside of here real good. I should have done that already. Now we'll take the piston, and if all goes well, look at that, guys, just slid right in, right? Just boop, nice and easy. That's why this trick of using the electrical tape is a whole lot easier than trying to take something and spin that seal in and possibly tearing it, causing damage. So there we go. Now we can put this back in, compress it, put this snap ring back in, and then we'll come back and do friction steel, and all that. So anyway, I'll come back here in a minute after I use my fancy dancy, you know, homemade tool to compress it and get that snap ring back in. And then, like I said, friction steel, and then we'll measure the gap for this. Hang tight. All right, guys, I already dropped one friction in steel in, or one steel in friction, so let me finish dropping the rest in here. Okay, and I was supposed to have, what, 70 in the front, or no, 30 to 35 in the back here. All right, let's see what we got. Let's see, there's about 34. There we go. Perfect. So 34 thousandths goes in here. You can feel the nice drag on it. So I'd say we are good there. So now, like I said, I can take these actually back apart. The pistons can stay in. The only thing I need to take out is the frictions and steels. So I will take the frictions and steels out. Everything else will stay in. Like I said, the pistons that we just dropped in and got nice and cold and frosty, those will stay in. Those will not come out. And then I will soak these for 30 minutes. Then we can put them back in. And then we can, you know, drop these into the transmission, drop the pump and everything in, bolt it up, and then we can air check to make sure all our work that we just did, you know, that we hear that thump sound when we apply air. And we know it's applying and we don't hear it leaking, right? That we get a nice solid thump and it doesn't, you know, release until we release the air pressure. So anyway, that's the next step. So we'll come back. I'm not going to show all these soaking, you know, and putting it back together. The next time you see me is when we're ready to drop it into the transmission case. That was a lot of filming, guys. I'm not sure how much time that actually took. Excuse me, that may be the break for video number 2. And then the last video will be wrapping it all up, putting everything together, air checking everything, you know, and yeah, and then putting valve body on the, you know, the pan and the tail shaft. By the way, I already replaced the bushing and the seal on the tail shaft on the other one. So that way, you know, it's done. I drove out the bushing with a socket and then drove the new one in with my bushing driver or my bearing driver, you know, got it to go in. So the tail shaft bushing is all, the tail shaft is good to go. So anyway, guys, I think that's a good stopping point for this video, I think. We'll see where we're at on time. Anyway, stick around for video 3 of this rebuild.